Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Today we're diving straight into a huge and honestly kind of glaring evolutionary mystery. If you've ever watched a nature documentary, you've probably noticed a really stark difference between us and our closest primate relatives. We look completely different. So today we're going to figure out exactly why our bodies ended up looking so profoundly unique.
It boils down to a super simple but profound question. Why are humans the only naked primates? Seriously, think about it for a second. Chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, they all kept these thick, lush coats of fur. So what on earth happened to us? Well, to find that answer, we actually have to travel millions of years back in time.
Section 1. The Primate Fur Mystery.
Millions of years ago, our ancestors looked and survived pretty much exactly like every other ape out there. They were completely covered in thick fur. And honestly, that fur was a totally vital survival tool. It kept them warm during freezing cold nights, and it protected them from the harsh elements. But look at us today. We've got this starkly hairless, smooth skin. From a pure basic evolutionary standpoint, giving up that thick, protective armor seems like a terrible idea, right? Like, why would we do that? So what actually changed?
That brings us to Section 2, Into the Hot Savanna. The ultimate game changer for human evolution was a massive change in real estate. As our ancestors left those dense, shaded forests for the wide-open, hot African savannas, they started walking upright on two legs. But there was a catch. Food out there was really scarce, and to fuel our increasingly large, energy-hungry brains, early humans began this desperate search for a super nutrient-dense food source, bone marrow. So they were forced to travel vast distances under a blazing, relentless sun just to scavenge abandoned carcasses, literally smashing open animal bones to eat the rich marrow inside. Surviving in that brutal, scorching environment, it absolutely required a radical biological change.
Section 3. The Sweaty Hunting Superpower.
Let's be brutally honest with ourselves here. We were absolutely not the fastest animals on the savanna. Not even close. An early human could never, ever outrun a cheetah or a horse in a quick sprint. But instead of speed, humans evolved a completely different physical trait. We developed slow, relentless endurance running. Basically, since we couldn't outsprint our prey, we evolved to just simply outlast them.
This birthed an incredible biological strategy known as persistence hunting. This is basically chasing prey for hours and hours until the exhausted animal finally just collapses from overheating. Our ancestors literally weaponized their endurance. They didn't need to be faster than their dinner. They just needed to be way, way more stubborn. Okay, so here is exactly how it worked. Step 1. Human hunters relentlessly chase their prey in the extreme, sweltering savanna heat. Step 2. The animal, which usually relies on panting to cool down, is forced to stop and rest. But guess what? The humans just keep coming. They do not stop. And finally, step 3, the exhausted animal just completely collapses, totally unable to regulate its own body temperature. It is a stunning display of stamina over speed. But how did humans keep running while all these other animals overheated?
The answer actually comes down to one staggering word: millions. To make persistence hunting and all that daytime scavenging we talked about possible, the human body evolved its absolute greatest superpower. Unlike almost all other mammals, humans have literally millions of sweat glands spread all across our skin.
As sweat evaporates from those millions of glands, it acts like a built-in AC unit, carrying heat right away from the body. But here is the major biological catch. Thick fur traps heat. You literally can't have an efficient evaporative cooling system if you are wearing a heavy fur coat. So, by shedding that fur over millions of years, our sweating became insanely effective. It allowed our ancestors to hunt and scavenge for that vital bone marrow right in the middle of the day, which, by the way, is exactly when all the apex predators were forced to sleep in the shade. It was a brilliant workaround.
Section 4. Parasites, Fire, and Clothes.
Now, keeping cool wasn't the only perk to going bald. Less body hair equals fewer ticks and lice. Think about it. A thick coat of fur is basically a luxury resort for harmful parasites. By losing the fur, we essentially evicted the bugs. This provided a massive hygienic advantage and kept early humans significantly healthier overall. But wait, what about staying warm during those really cold savanna nights? Well, nature was gradually replaced by technology. Once humans mastered fire and figured out how to wear animal skins, we essentially outsourced our temperature control. We no longer needed to spend precious biological energy growing our own warmth because, well, we had tools to do it for us.
Section 5. Why we kept some hair. Because, let's face it, if being hairless was so incredibly amazing, why aren't we entirely bald from head to toe?
The biological caveat here is that we never became completely hairless. The hair we did keep actually survived to perform some highly specific, crucial jobs. Head hair? It protects our sensitive scalps from the blistering sun. Eyebrows? They are perfectly positioned to divert all that salty sweat right away from our eyes. Eyelashes basically act as little windshield wipers, blocking dust and tiny insects. And even those nearly invisible fine hairs on your arms, they actually serve as an early warning sensory system for crawling bugs. Literally, every single hair left on you is an evolutionary survivor.
So, as you can see, becoming the naked ape wasn't just one single magical event. It was this perfect storm of evolutionary pressures all working together over millions of years. The intense heat of the savanna, the desperate search for that brain-building bone marrow, persistence hunting, parasite eviction, and the invention of fire. They all combined to sculpt the modern human body as we know it today.
The exact adaptation that helped our ancestors run across scourging landscapes is ultimately what made us one of the most successful species in history. It just goes to show that sometimes the biggest advantage isn't being the fastest. It's simply being the one that never stops running. But, it does leave us with a fascinating question. If our bodies were so perfectly sculpted by evolution for relentless endurance and extreme heat, what does our modern, sedentary, air-conditioned lifestyle mean for the future of human biology? Something to chew on? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.